Hello everyone, this is Yflex and welcome back to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video we're going to be looking at Soulero's song The World featuring Yvette. If you haven't seen my videos in the past, I basically break down these videos into three separate sections. I have an intro backstory section, then a breakdown analysis section, and then an outro section. So this song The World originally was an instrumental release on Monstercat on the album 010 Conquest. And this is a vocal version that Soulero made a little while after the original was released on Monstercat, which is a really good song. But for me, I kind of like the inclusion of the vocal. Even though the mix for the song is not as strong as the original on Monstercat, I don't mind that it's not as strong if it includes the vocal, because the vocal from Yvette is a little bit more interesting to me with the song. It pairs pretty well, at least to me. So again, thanks to Soulero for watching my videos. It's been kind of mind-blowing seeing him just comment in general. I'm not even sure how he found my videos in the first place. So Soulero, if you're watching this, thank you. Been a big fan of yours ever since your song Pussycat, and I still go back to listen to your discography on Monstercat quite often. So if I do miss anything within this song, feel free to write in the comments below. But one of the questions I have for you, in case you do watch this video, is what was the reasoning behind releasing the instrumental versus this vocal version, like by yourself and not on Monstercat? Is it because the vocals came after the fact, or just some contractual stuff with the vocal versus an instrumental for The World on Monstercat? Just kind of curious how and why that happened in terms of how the song played out. But anyways, to get back to the song, really liked this song for a while. I think on Monstercat, The World is classified as house, but there's a lot of complextro little elements thrown in there. So at the time I think this song came out, Monstercat classified it as electronic. So for the longest time, I didn't really know what the song's genre really was, but whatever the case, house, electronic it may be, it still is a really good song. Oh, actually, back then they called it EDM. I don't even think they called it electronic. It was just EDM because they didn't have the electronic label for it yet. So anyways, this is Soulero's song, The World, featuring Yvette, and we will get into the breakdown of the song. All right, to start off the song, you hear it almost sounds like a piano. It sounds like it has a lot of delay and reverb on it, where it goes, and I like that effect. When I hear that effect in the beginning of the song, I just know it's The World right off the bat, because there are not many songs that start off with a almost like delayed piano, in a sense, with a lot of like delay and reverb on it to make it sound like it's not like on beat. It's a little bit off beat, it almost sounds like. So, and I think there is some volume automation or a little bit of filtering in the beginning, just to introduce the song, not as forefront as, you know, you would hear just the sound straight away. Sounds like there's a little bit of automation, whether it be like a filter or volume automation. And then the kick just comes right in 15 seconds in, so you kind of know that it's gonna be a high pumping song. So anyways, let's keep going. So within that 45-second span, you hear the kick combined with that delayed piano, which is really nice pairing together. The kick starts really bringing in that drive. There was a white noise VFX or sample used to transition, and then you start hearing the bass line come in, and that's going through some type of filtering. It sounds like a low pass filter that the kind of bass chord progressions going through on the bottom, and then it also sounds like there's a filter on it as well, taking out some of the highs. So it might be automated through like an oscillating filter to slowly introduce the high end more towards this part, and then it kind of cuts out before it dips out within this first break section. So you do hear the more stylistic, iconic Soulero vocal chops within this section. I think you start to hear him a little bit at 30 seconds, but more so at around 45 seconds. So this is a more traditional structure for an EDM song with like a minute intro. Luckily, it didn't start off with the kick right off the bat. It waited a little bit for like 15 seconds to introduce the kick. And I just like the inclusion of the chord progression, how it builds up to this section. And I will say I was head bobbing this whole time. So, I mean, it's really hard not to head bob when listening to the song. But what I do like also in the very beginning with that delayed piano is it almost gives this song like a funky new disco vibe right off the bat. And I don't know if Soulero was going for that, but that's definitely the vibe I get off of this song. I just like how the pad itself just builds up within the section to kind of build the space that he's building for this song. So anyways, let's get into this break section. Alright, so this is the break and build up section, which is really nice. So in the original version that you would hear on Monstercat without the vocal, this would all purely be instrumental. So you wouldn't hear the vocals at all from Anna Yvette. So to break down the instruments used, you hear the pad playing on the bottom, the chord progression, as well as the sub bass, I believe, within the section. And those are used to build up with some filtering, I think, and then some automation with using like a filter for the high-end sounds. It sounds like the sound builds up again before this drop. And there was, I think, a kind of melody on the top, but it wasn't super noticeable. I was mostly paying attention to the chords on the bottom and the vocal. So there might have been the piano also playing around in the background, but the vocal really does take up the space quite a bit in the high end. So more of the focus, at least for me right now, was on the vocal and just the bass pads and how those two paired really well together. And the inclusion of the vocal in this part, I think, is really good. I actually think the original could have used this vocal as well, but even though the original doesn't have this vocal, it's nice to have an instrumental as well to hear first and then hear this version, so you could kind of understand like, oh, okay, this is what he included in the mix. That's a little bit different than the original instrumental. So Anna Yvette's vocals are always good. A lot of her songs on Monstercat that she sings for are really good, and this is kind of the early days of using her vocals, so I think the vocal is a little bit thin for this song, but I think it works pretty well for the time period of 2012. So it does pair really well. And the one thing I want to note about this section is the build-up does not have any percussion. There's actually no percussion within this section to even build up. I think it's purely based on filtering and just using the main pad synths and the vocal to really kind of build up within this section. And then I think there is a VFX that just comes into transition, but there is no percussion at all within this section. And I didn't realize that in the original song The World either. I thought there was normally in 2012 a kick or a snare usually build up within this time period, but this song actually was a little bit ahead of its time in terms of structure for that. So props to you, Soulero. That is really cool. I didn't really notice that all these years, so and as many times as I've listened to The World. So anyways, those were the sounds I noticed, and let's get into the first drop or chorus. All right, so within this first part of the drop, you hear the drop play, and to me, it reminds me a lot of Complextro, just with the whole melody kind of going along with the bass line, and then different sounds put in at the ends of phrases. And these are more unique sounds to Soulero's style, which is really cool. And the one thing I want to point out was the introduction of the vocal within the section. There was a reverse reverb tail that I've mentioned in previous songs before, where you take the first syllable, put a bunch of reverb on it, reverse it, and then use that, kind of introducing the vocal within the section. I heard that right before the vocal was introduced, so for your ears it just flows better. It's not like a sudden vocal just starting right off the bat. So nice touch there. I didn't actually know that technique was used so early as 2012, but kind of makes sense because I think Vice Tone used it around end of 2012, 2013, when they were starting to release on Monstercat. I did notice that in Heartbeat. So anyways, that's what I noticed, and the percussion is pretty standard for a house electro song. Kick on every beat, and then a snare on like the 2 and the 4, or a clap on the 2 and the 4, and then some hi-hats. So anyways, let's keep going. All right, towards this section of the chorus, the second part of this first chorus, I do like how it becomes more melodic, and the bass line is a little bit harder, but it's more melodic instead of having that Complextro kind of drop in the beginning, which is really nice because it pairs really well with the vocal on the top. And I just like how there's more high end on the bass line, and it's unique sound to Soulero, which I really like. A little bit harder of a bass line, but it's not really hard where it just kind of is really distorted and takes like the full presence within the section. Like it still gives like a nice kind of euphoric vibe, almost like just has a little more distortion or a little more grittiness to that sound to give it a little more energy within the section. And I like the variation of the vocals from Anna Yvette here. Really nice variation. It's not just the same vocal hook played over and over again, or vocal chopped within the section. So the variation of her harmonizing towards the end is really nice within this section of the chorus. So anyways, we get into this break section here, and you hear the piano sound again. So let's get back into it. right, so this section is a little bit faster, I think, in terms of the break. The piano's playing, the bass progression's playing as well at the same time. Previously, it was just the piano, and then the bass, either synth or pad, came in a little bit later along with the sub bass, but they all were kind of playing together within the section. And then I like how there's this nice chime sound that introduces the vocal within the section, which is a nice addition, just kind of a more euphoric, atmospheric, ambient sound to transition instead of using a VFX. It sounded more like a synth in a sense. And again, in this section, it's really short, but there's no percussion going into the second chorus. So that's really a unique song where, most songs, they maybe don't use a percussion buildup in the first drop and they might use it in the second drop to emphasize the second drop or vice versa. But this song doesn't even use that much percussion at all to introduce into the next section. So that's really interesting to note for a song like this. It's really unique for its time in terms of its structure. So anyways, let's get into the second chorus. All right, so that is The World by Soulero featuring Anna Yvette. We'll back up into the second chorus. So the second chorus is basically similar to the second part of the first chorus, where you don't really have that complextro drop in the beginning. You have the more melodic bass line playing, and then the vocals start right off the bat within this drop section. And the vocals, I think, are pretty similar to the vocals in the first or in the second half of the first chorus, but there is a little bit of variation within this vocal. I think there is one or two phrases where it's a little bit different in terms of what Anna Yvette says. So that's a nice touch for the song. And there is a nice little lead on the top that goes on the top, playing along with the vocal. And I think that's the lead sound that you hear in the instrumental version on Monstercat. But in this version, he threw the vocal in there from Anna Yvette. So the spacing is a little close, but you still hear the sound. So that's pretty good that he was able to, I guess, separate the space, even though both the sounds are in a pretty close frequency range in terms of maybe one blocking out the other. But that's pretty good in that part. And the percussion is pretty similar. It's like a 4/4 rhythm. And not much changed within this section. There's some VFX in terms of white noise VFX within this section to transition within the drop. And then after that, it kind of fades out a little bit, kind of like the end of the first chorus and drop. And then it goes into a more traditional kick snare outro for, I think, about 30 seconds, which is not too bad. I don't remember if the original instrumental didn't have any kind of sounds after this section. It might. So it's pretty interesting. I thought he would maybe include a couple sounds within the section, but for 2012, this was a more traditional kind of outro, so that makes sense to me why it was structured this way and there were no other sounds. But yeah, it's pretty interesting outro, really good for mixing. So anyways, this is The World, and this is a song I frequent quite a bit, whether it be this vocal version or the instrumental version. I always come back to listen to this song. So thanks again, Soulero, for making this song. 010 Conquest is quite an album, a lot of really big notable songs, and I think this song is a little bit underrated on the album, because there's so many other good songs from 010 Conquest that, you know, some of the songs get overshadowed a little bit, and I feel like The World might be one of them. But I would have really loved the vocal version on Monstercat back in the day, but I mean, I can't complain with it being on his own channel. But Soulero, if you do watch this video, I'd like to know why the instrumental came out on Monstercat versus the vocal version included. But anyways, thanks again, Soulero, for even finding my videos. I really do enjoy your comments. It just kind of makes my day, and it's a little bit mind-blowing. I remember the first time I saw your comments on my videos, I was mind-blown. I was like, whoa, a legit Monstercat artist I listened to in the past actually commented. Wow, what? But if there's anything else you want to note for this song, definitely leave it down in the comments section, Soulero, if you do watch this. And if there's anything I missed, definitely mark that down below as well. But I hope to do more of your music, and Aura is a song I hope to do in the future, because that's one of my favorites from your discography, as well as, I believe, Native is a really fun one. So anyways, I hope you guys like this breakdown video, and I hope to see you guys in the next A Producers Approach video. And like, comment, subscribe if you like this content. And thanks again, Soulero, for all the music you created throughout the years, and hope to see you and some others in the comment section. All right, have a good one, everyone. Peace.